go bag. And the goals that we have today for the webinar are to really increase your preparedness so that you can handle accidents, incidents, near misses, emergencies, natural disasters from a risk management standpoint. Now, I realize that people come from all different job descriptions, job titles, and they do different tasks on a day-to-day basis. But we all are risk managers in our own way, and we all have different responsibilities as it pertains to safety, incident investigation, those type of critical parts of our operations. And so as I took a look at what webinar topic we wanted to bring up, we thought, how can we go about helping people be better prepared to handle a problem at work, at home, out on the road? That's one of our biggest exposures would be our time on the road, because we're out visiting members around the state. We spend a significant amount of time on the road. What happens if we have a problem with our vehicle? What happens if we get stranded somewhere? What happens if you're an emergency responder? And this topic was actually spurred by a presentation that we had in our fall conference. Mark Christensen gave an excellent presentation about dealing with a major disaster that they had. They had a fire followed by a, I believe it was a 500-year storm, and so they had major flooding, major impacts on their communities. And he brought up some points. Hey, I wish I would have had this in a go bag ready to go. And so I thought about that a little more, and I thought, well, maybe I can add to that just a little bit and give you a little bit of information on how you can be better prepared to handle whatever your job is when it comes to an emergency or incident. And I'll ask you about, we go through and we have checklists a lot, and you may ask yourself, why are we going to talk about a checklist? Why are we going to talk about a go bag? Well, not only to have a resource that's available to us when we need it, checklists are a very powerful tool to help us evaluate our programs, evaluate how our systems work, and it gives us an idea of where we're really strong and where we're really weak. All right. So you may ask yourself, what the heck is a go bag? If you're in this kind of world, you go onto the internet, you do a Google search for go bag or any of these other topics that I'm going to talk about. It's something that is very popular on the web. But a lot of us out there maybe aren't really involved in the zombie apocalypse. We don't think about these things. But what a go bag is a portable supply of tools and supplies, the things that we might need for a given event. There are different types of go bags. Utah is a very preparedness, we're very directed towards preparedness, and we're conscious of that in the state. So most of us have heard of 72-hour kits, and probably a high percentage of us do have a 72-hour kit for ourselves and our families. Road emergency kits, and we'll talk about this one a little bit later. This is something that we highly recommend because of the inclement weather that we suffer here in Utah. We need to be prepared for whatever we might have. And there are a ton of other types of these kits that are out there. A good bag, that's a get out of Dodge bag. And SHTF, I don't know if anybody knows what that one stands for. That means something hit the fan kit. And if you go online and do any searches on this, you'll find things like that big old acronym that we have, or Teotwaki. That means the end of the world as we know it. Or the zombie apocalypse kit. All of these things, we're not going to talk about those in detail. We'll talk about the risk management go bag and a couple others that you should probably be prepared with. These kits can be very simple to very complex. Just the simplest thing you might have is to keep cash in your wallet and maybe some Band-Aids, simple things like that. But I'm here to tell you that each of us should probably have several of these kits. for different purposes. One in our vehicle to keep us prepared should we have a problem out on the road. One that's the 72-hour kit for ourselves and our families. One that pertains more to our job, and that's really what we're talking about today, is that risk management go bag. What do we need if a bad problem happens at our facility? What do we need if a simple problem happens? We have an incident or an accident. What kind of tools or forms or other things do we need to have at our fingertips to make that go well? So in this risk management go bag, we want to be prepared for whatever comes our way, no matter what our job title. We may be a supervisor and somebody gets injured, or we have a property damage happen, or even a near miss happen in our department. What do we do at that point? What kind of information do we need to gather? What kind of tools do we have to have available for that? A couple of things just on general preparedness, and this is something that it seems like at the trust we may have issues on this because we do drive a lot. Keep your gas tank above half tank in your car, so you're prepared in the event that you slide off the road or the roads are closed. You've got enough fuel that you can last through there, through that time period. Have cash in your wallet. Have first aid kits everywhere. I've got 5 kits, and first aid kits, Band-Aids seem like they disappear quite often. So keep track of those. So in this risk management go bag, we look at incident response, emergency evacuation, or natural disasters, other challenges that we might face. First thing that we need to figure out when we're talking about our go bag is what type of container do we want to have this kit in. And some of those are an actual bag for our go bag. And I have one like this that I carry in my truck with me wherever I go. Has a lot of simple supplies in there, survival type supplies. If you look on the left-hand side of the screen, here's a big mailbox, and you might ask yourself, what does a mailbox have to do with any of this? Back in my days when I was working in industry, managing plants, and we had to have evacuation plans. I had a giant mailbox out in the parking lot, because one of the challenges that we have is we may have great plans, policies, procedures, and tools, and all of that, but when the fire alarm rings or we're evacuated from the building for whatever reason, we may not have access to those. So I created a box that was just made out of a mailbox. We could lock it up. We had a combination on there, so anybody that was involved in emergency response could get into that. But we had all of our supplies that we might need in the event of an evacuation. We had evacuation plans, facility diagrams. We had job descriptions and MSDSs for the chemicals that we dealt with. We had all of our contact numbers and really the evacuation plan itself and other policies and procedures that dealt with that. The other type of container that I like is a 5-gallon bucket. A 5-gallon bucket is a great container. Okay, Lance, you're going to have to talk to me here. I'll let you. I'll unmute your mic there. So if you can see this on the camera.
I'm looking.
All right.
I like it.
Ooh, like
little
that.
dress for the bucket.
So
bucket skirt.
It is a very. This is one that I found, and I actually have not been able to find another one of these commercially available. But I really like this. So the standard 5-gallon bucket with one of these sealable lids on it.
The Gamma.
The Gamma lid. I wasn't really going to give Gamma a plug, but we did. So the Gamma lid is great because it's sealable. It's easy to get in and out of. What are you going to do with a pack like this? Well, this is for a more serious incident that we're having. This is more time. The idea behind the 5-gallon bucket is you can seal it up, keep things fresh, dry, out of the elements. And the thing I like about a 5-gallon bucket is when you get where you're going, you've got something to sit on. You can use it as a seat, and depending on how long you're there, you can use it for other things. This and I would like to find another one of these. this little, see if I can get that on the screen, is kind of what do we call that, Lance? Lance called it a skirt, and that's the only thing I can get in my head.
I like it's got the backpack straps on.
This one has a backpack strap on it, so you can carry it around. I still kept the bucket handle on there. Makes it really easy to maneuver around when you get where you're going.
All the zippers are on the bottom, and it dumps out.
You're not supposed to notice that. That's why I got it really cheap. That's why I'd like to find another one of these. This is a really great thing, but they really messed up. That's so I got it. So I got it on a great deal. But it has little pockets here and there. That's a nice tool. So my recommendation is that you have multiple kits based on the type of incident you might be facing. Now we're going to have maybe a 5-gallon bucket for our family at home for their 72-hour kit. It might be a backpack. It's whatever works best for you, and so just think through, where do I need a bag? Where do I need a kit to keep myself safe? So from a risk management standpoint, safety is going to be first. We're going to have some supplies in there to keep us safe: safety glasses, hard hat, safety boots, earplugs, nitrile gloves in the event that we have to do some first aid, or there's blood or bodily fluids. We want to protect ourselves from that. Leather gloves if we've got to move some heavy materials around. N95 respirators. Those simple dust mask respirators can protect us from a significant number of different hazards that are out there. They're not good for everything, but they will protect us from some things. And the venerable retroreflective vest to protect us in the event that we're out on the road at night, and we need to be seen by those other folks in the area. Some other things, standard risk management things: a clipboard, something to write on. That's another reason I like that 5-gallon bucket. Is I like to be able to sit down when I'm trying to write. So having a clipboard and some place to sit, paper, pens, markers, maybe some of those should be water repellent, so you can write in the rain. A flashlight, camera. With cell phones now, we have great video and picture taking abilities there. That's a very important tool. Caution tapes. Do we need to be able to restrict access to a certain area? Masking tape for marking where things are. Binoculars, tape measure. Forms. Those written forms that we might need. Instant investigation forms, and we'll send out some of those today after this webinar to everybody that's signed up. Other things, we might need some supplies to fix or isolate a problem. The old duct tape is a great tool for certain problems that are out there. We might need some lockout tagout supplies. If we have an incident there, how do we isolate this piece of equipment so it doesn't cause any more problems? Zip ties, multi-tools, wrenches, those type of things. And this is all personalized based on the type of operation that you have and your responsibility in that operation. Other things, reference documents, your emergency action plan, your employee roster. How do we account for every person that was in that building when we're out there? So having that roster available, particularly outside of the building, is important. Maps of the area or buildings. If the building's on fire, and you need to tell the fire department where to look for somebody that isn't accounted for, it's really helpful to have a facility plan to show the fire department. Blueprints, depending on the type of operations that you have, may be really important if you have to isolate a part of the system. Job descriptions. Somebody's injured, it's important to have that. Lance talked about incident reporting today and some of the things that you might have. Job descriptions, MSDSs for chemicals that people are working with. Chemical locations. Where is that bad stuff that's in there when the building's on fire? What do emergency responders have to be worried about? How much of that stuff is there? Other things that we might look for. What other references are out there? Who might we need to contact? One great resource that's out there is the League of Cities and Towns, they have their directory. They also publish the Duties and Powers book. What can we do and how do we go about doing this in the event of an emergency? So have that book available. Mutual aid agreements. We work diligently with other organizations that are out there, other entities, to make sure that we have agreements. So if we have a big problem, others are out to help us, and we do likewise to them when they have a problem. So what are those agreements? If you happen to be in that in that organization or that position in the organization that will be organizing those type of responses. Other things that are out there: contact information, the trust contacts, how to file a claim, what's the number or the website to be able to file a claim if you're out standing in the parking lot. How do we get started on that? And we'll also send out those documents. We have a really all-encompassing contact list that has all the claims information as well as all of the trust employees. You can give us a call anytime. Our cell numbers are there and there to be used if you have a question. An entity directory, who's responsible for what, and how do we contact everybody in the company? You may have a parent organization that's at another building. Do you have a copy of that number? You know, in the time of cell phones, I hate to admit this, but I couldn't tell you what my wife's cell phone number is because all I do is push a button. We may think about having those numbers written down somewhere so they're available. Contractors' numbers. What about an electrician? If we have a problem with our electrical system, who do we get there? What if we have a spill of a chemical? If we call up a contractor after the spill has occurred, the price goes way up for his services. So let's make sure that we contracted those services ahead of time, and we have the contractor's contact information right there. The clinic that we use, the hospitals in the area, have those contact numbers out there. Regulatory agencies, if we have a spill over a certain quantity, a reportable quantity, then we have to call into the National Response Center. Many of you may or may not know what that number is. We need to know how much the spills, how much the amounts are, the reportable quantities for the chemicals that we have on site. Also, if we have a serious accident that happens on our facility, fatality, multiple hospitalizations, loss of consciousness, major broken bone, we need to call Utah OSHA within 8 hours. So if you're the person that's going to be making that call, you want to have those numbers programmed into your phone and probably written down somewhere so you can find those in a hurry. Passwords. In an emergency situation, it's really stressful to try to come up with a password if you don't have your computer or your phone there. You're trying to get into a critical piece of information. Have those passwords available in one form or another, probably a couple of different forms. We need to take care of ourselves as well. One of the things that Mark Christensen brought up was he ended up standing out in the rain for an extended period of time, and it was miserable. So if we're going to be one of these response people or we're going to be out of the building for any amount of time, we probably want to have some rain gear there, and probably some serious rain gear that will stand up to extended exposure to rain and snow. A pair of dry socks is one of the nicest things that you can have if you've had a really miserable day and you're out responding to an incident or emergency. Warm clothing, water, high energy foods, prescriptions. If you take prescriptions, you probably want to have a supply of those available that aren't in your desk at work or at home in the event that you're kept away from those areas for any amount of time. Personal items that you may need, and also some sanitation, hand sanitizers, some wet wipes, trash bags, other things like that are great to have in this bucket where I like to keep that. But any of these packs, so they're available in the event that we need to get cleaned up from, maybe we're injured, maybe it's just a really messy event that's happened, but so we clean up. A couple other things to think about are take care of your family. You may be an emergency responder, or you may have a role at your organization where you're not going to be able to go home even in the event of a major disaster. What's your family going to do? So we want to have a plan with our family ahead of time. We want to agree on where we're going to meet, how we're going to contact each other. Make sure that they have their own kits, their 72-hour kits. Take care of them. Make pre-arrangements. If you're kept at work for an extended amount of time, who's going to take care of the kids? What kind of child care is there? Those are critical things to think of before the bad incident happens and you're kept away from your families. So we take care of them. A couple other things I wanted to talk about were related to the electronics. In today's day and age, we have just a plethora of electronic devices that can really help us out. And so I wanted to go through some of the pluses and minuses of all of this electronic infrastructure that we have. First of all, devices. Cell phones are great until they don't work. We have, and I'll talk about apps in a second. There are wonderful apps that are out there, but do we have a backup plan in the event that the cell phone towers don't work, or there's a problem with the system? There have been a number of occasions in the last 10 years or so when cell phone communications have been disrupted by solar activity, let alone other issues, power outages and things that may cause those to go down. In addition to that, many of our phone systems have gone over to VoIP, internet-based phones, and we may not have landlines. So we ought to consider that. Do we have a landline? Even if we do have a landline, are our phones all electronic? So if the power goes dead, we don't have access to a phone line out. In our homes, we should have at least one phone that is the old analog type phone that we can plug into a regular landline and be able to get that communication. Radios. Big thing on radios is making sure that they have charged batteries and that our radios will work in the situations that we're trying to work around. That we have proper frequencies. How do you get information out to a big number of people? All of your employees are standing out in the parking lot. How do you talk to them without losing your voice, which is what I'm trying to do right now? A bullhorn may be the answer for that. Pagers, other types of things. And what's your social media plan? This is one of the as long as the electronic devices are working, this is a great way to get information out to the general public. And like it or hate it, social media is here to stay, and we need to have a plan and an ability to use it to our benefit. So let's get working on that. Power may be an issue. What happens if the power's out? What happens if your building is gone? It's on fire, or your server room fails, and there's water damage or something like that. What do you do in those cases? Few considerations are do we have spare batteries? Maybe in our jump bag, maybe in other fixed locations that are out there. This is one thing. This product here actually got a little bit different than the one is shown here. But I bought a solar panel with this particular battery pack that goes along with it. You can simply put in AA batteries or AAA batteries and plug into your phone, and it'll charge it back up. You can plug into the solar panel, and I've taken this on extended backpacking trips, and it works really well to keep those phones charged up. In an emergency situation, we're really going to be using those phones, and how are we going to keep them charged over time? Now, if we've got a vehicle there, that's great, but we also need to have our charger. That needs to be in our car at all times or in our pack. Other things to think about. What about redundancy? Where are your critical documents? What might you need in the event that an emergency or an accident happens? How do you access those? My recommendation is that you have both hard and soft copies of those documents, and in multiple locations. So if your main office is compromised, it's on fire, or There's another reason why you can't go there. Can we access those policies and procedures and documents somewhere else? One option would be using the cloud backup. Cloud is great until the cloud goes offline. If we don't have internet, we don't have cloud backup. So consider that along with servers. Servers are great until the power goes out and the battery backups go dead. And but one thing that we can always rely on, as long as we have a computer that works, is maybe you have a thumb drive in your pack that has all of those critical documents on that. So keep that in mind, and also keep that in mind for your personal documents in your 72-hour kit. You know, bank information. You know, we want to keep this where it is secure, and so people can't have access to that. But could you have a thumb drive there that has all of your personal information that might be important should your house burn down or another disaster happen that you can't get to that information quickly? I want to run through just quickly some applications that are available out there that I think are great for this type of work. The first one is MyTrust, and of course we're going to plug our app first and go through that. MyTrust is an app that will give you a directory of all state and local governments. So most of you use the League of Cities and Towns directory for a lot of those organizations. It's a great compendium of information. But we have this electronic version where you can go in and search for any of the any state employees out there. All of the local governments in the state are there. Now, of course, it's like I say, it is subject to batteries dying and making sure that that we have power to run that, and phone lines. We also have in that the Safety Action Register function that you can get that will allow you to go in and have a closed loop system to be able to handle problems that you found out there, a hazard, take it to completion. You can take pictures, you can email a report out to everyone, hey, we had an accident, here's what we found, here's what we need to fix, and you can take it all the way to completion until somebody signs off and says, yes, this is done. Also, we have our training calendar on there. You can report a hazard in other people's locations as well. This is kind of an interesting app that I've used a little bit. It's called 50 Radio, and there are a lot of these out there. I'm not really, besides MyTrust, I'm not advocating one over another, but this is one that I've used. And what it is, it's a streaming emergency scanner, and as long as you have internet access, you can run this scanner and listen to any of the fire, EMS, or other emergency services broadcast dispatch anywhere in the world. Great little app. Wiser is a great app if you're dealing with hazardous materials or terrorist events or drug labs or anything like that. This is a great way to get information about chemicals, about terrorist events. This has more information in one place than any other app that I found in this world. And I just like to point out that all of these apps are free. I wanted to make sure that everybody had an opportunity to go out and look at these and play with them, and it's not going to cost you anything. But if you look on the right-hand side of the screen, we have an overlay over a community showing a spill of ammonia and what type of area would be affected and which area should be evacuated or shelter in place. So that's a great one. Theodolite, this is one that I happened upon. It's actually an app that snipers use to help them make good, accurate shots at long distances. But I use it for other things. I use it to gather information for incident investigation. So if I go out and I need to look at the angle of, the slope of a hill, look at how things are positioned, this is a great thing, and you can really document well because you can take a picture of the angle and all those things. Okay. Red Cross has some great apps out there as well. The First Aid app, just go through these really quick. First Aid does exactly what it says. It's a quick app that if you have a question about how do I stop bleeding, you tap on that, and it has tons of resources there. Will help you to pre-plan, gives you checklists, as well as just a plethora of other information. The Wildfire app also allows you to go in and look, hey, how much danger am I in if I buy a home in this neighborhood? You can check that out ahead of time, and it also gives you good information in the event that a wildfire happens in your area. The Earthquake app does similar things. It points out which areas of which areas are more prone to earthquakes, what to do during, right after, and post earthquake to make sure that we're safe and that we handle things right. Also gives you checklists to go in and look at our homes and our buildings at our work to make sure they're safe and prepared for earthquake. This one is focused on shelters, Red Cross shelters. Anyway, nice real-time application that shows you where any Red Cross shelters are around the country. This is kind of a nice one that you can use for your own stuff. You may consider doing it in your office as well. This is a way to take an inventory of your possessions. So if you download this app, it's a free app. It's called Know Your Stuff Home Inventory. You go into your home and you document what your valuables are, and really all of your possessions. You can add the items in, so you got to be a real risk management nerd to do this kind of stuff. But I'll tell you some stories of I could tell you stories of several people, members of the trust, that have come to me after the fact that their home burned and said, wow, I wish I would have done an inventory on my home. This has been a nightmare trying to really remember what we had and establish value for those things. This is a great thing for our homes. At the trust, for your property exposures, we also have some other tools there that you can track your buildings and contents. Okay. I threw this in here just in case we had some extra time, and it looks like I burned it all up, but just some ideas. I think everybody should have an auto emergency kit. Keep your gas above half tank, particularly during the winter time. In the event that we get stranded somewhere, have your cell phone charger in the phone and keep your phone charged. Have a collapsible shovel, jumper cables, first aid kit, and an emergency kit. What goes into your emergency kit? Well, that's really what happens if I have a problem out on the road. You know, the safety triangles, the retro-reflective vest, toe strap, warm clothing, those type of things. I was just working on swapping around my emergency kit for I keep a summertime kit and a wintertime kit based on the type of travel I'm going to be doing, the areas that I'm going. Food and water are really important to have there, and have a way to store those appropriately. Okay, just in summary, we should all be regularly reviewing our preparations. And that's one of the nice things about having changing seasons. We can change our kits around. It gives us an excuse to go in and look at our go bag and see if it's prepared and ready to go. So when we need it, it'll be ready and in the right place where we can find that. Okay, that was a lot of talking. Does anybody have a question? Lance, we got anything coming up?
No, we've been quiet on the communication front here. No questions have been asked, and I even put in a comment that I like spam, and no one even said anything about that. So
well, I see a response there. It says, I hate spam.
Oh, well, maybe I'm not getting all the responses.
Oh, maybe that's what's happened. I probably should have been watching over there a little bit better. Let's see. We have a question. Can we print that last slide? We'll have to have you get back to us and tell us which slide that is. We will be sending out the checklist that was on one of the slides, and we'll post this webinar up. It'll probably take a day or two before we can get that rendered and posted up on the website. Then you can go in and stream that to anybody else that wants it. Do we have any other questions coming in, Lance?
Not that I can see. So good job.
All right.
You explained yourself.
Well, thank you, folks. I appreciate it. Got a big group here today. I hope that was valuable to you. Once again, we are wide open to any suggestions that you have. If you've got a great list that's out there somewhere, and I will admit that this list is a bit limited. There are far more all-encompassing lists out there. I have one that I showed to Doug one day, my own personal 72-hour kit list. And he says, "Don't show that to anybody, because they'll think you're insane. They'll think you're a loon." And I agree with that. But anyway, if you've got some great ideas of things, we'd be happy to share those. Please, if you do have those comments to share, send those off to us today, and then we can send those out with the information that we send on with the checklist and that. Doug, did you have anything to add?
I just made my input right there that you're insane. But
that I'm insane. Okay, yeah. I appreciate that. And there's a question: are you going to send out the PowerPoint? We will send out a copy of this in PDF. It's too big to email out the PowerPoint itself, but we'll send it in a PDF version, so you'll have the full slides and so you can use that. Okay. All right. Not seeing anything else, we'll wrap up the day. Thank you so much for attending, and go out and have a safe day. My recording is not.